On today's Alex and Auto segment, we're out here taking a look at the 2015 Volkswagen Jetta. Now, this particular model is the TDI, but this child seat review will actually cover all variants of the Jetta in the United States. For 2015, Volkswagen has tweaked the front and rear bumpers and given us some new engines under the hood. However, they haven't done a whole lot to change the interior dimensions of the Jetta, so that means this child seat review will also apply to the 2014 and prior model years as well. This is a Graco Classic Ride 50 child seat, and it's a convertible child seat, which means it is suitable for forward or rearward facing installations and children from 4 to 50 pounds. The first step, of course, is to move the front passenger seat as far forward as we possibly can in order to maximize the amount of rear space for a rearward-facing child seat. We do have a manual seat in our particular model right here, so I'll scoot this forward until I have about an inch of room between my knees and the dashboard. Now, one thing to note is that when I'm this far forward, our model is equipped with a sunroof. I have a little bit less headroom than I would in a more rearward position. The Jetta has a surprising amount of combined front and rear legroom that really comes into play when you're installing a rearward-facing child seat in a vehicle, because I was able to comfortably sit in that front seat. Admittedly, as I said, I didn't have a whole lot of headroom going on, but I could do that for a decent amount of time, and I was able to fit a rearward-facing child seat right behind myself. It's important when installing any rearward-facing child seat to leave about 1 to 2 inches of room between the rearward-facing child seat and the front seat, because in the event of a rear-end style collision, this front seat can move a decent amount rearwards, and you don't want it to impact this child seat. One thing to keep in mind with the Jetta is that, like many small cars, due to the shape of the dashboard, I was able to fit a child seat right here behind myself in the passenger seat, but not right here on the driver's side, because the shape of the dashboard is such that I can't move the driver's seat quite as far forward comfortably and still drive the vehicle as I could for this passenger seat. When installing two child seats in the back of the Jetta, it is important to keep in mind that this is a compact vehicle, so you obviously won't have as much room in the back as you would find in something like a Volkswagen Passat. That's really obvious when you take a look at how I'm sitting in this bench seat in the back. I do have these two child seats buckled into the car, and the center child seat is not really in the center of this rear bench seat. It's actually skewed a little bit off to my side, and that's because we have this other child seat right over here on the right side of the vehicle. If I go ahead and close that door, you'll notice that I have troubles sitting upright in this back seat. That's just because I don't have enough shoulder room between the door and this child seat in order to sit upright. I do have a relatively good amount of headroom in the back here for a compact vehicle. My head is barely touching the ceiling, but then again, I am pressed awfully far to this left side because of this child seat. Like most compact vehicles, the Jetta has 2 sets of latch anchors for the outboard seating positions only, and 3 top tether anchors, and that includes this center child seat. It's also important to know that the Jetta does need to have its center headrest removed in order for this particular child seat to fit here properly. Now, right over here on this outboard child seat right here, you can see it fits just barely under the headrest, which is a good configuration. You do want the back of the seat to be resting very firmly against the seat back. Removing the center headrest was a little bit trickier than in some other vehicles in this category, because we have a release button on one side, and on the other side you actually have to insert the key of the vehicle right like that into a little hole right there on the side, and that will release the headrest from the other side. You do have to remove this headrest in order for this seat to be sitting properly with the back right against the back of the rear bench seat. One other thing to know when we're back here is that the top tether anchor on these Graco Classic Ride 50 child seats, like some other seats out there, has a very long buckle arrangement. So the end right here to the back of the buckle is a decent distance, and that means that when you have a short distance to your top tether anchor like we do right here in the Jetta, and we try and tighten this up, it's difficult to get it tight, because right here, pulled all the way tight, you still have a decent amount of slack in this buckle. That means we have a decent amount of slack right here on the top of the child seat. It's important that when your child seat is properly installed in the vehicle, that you have no more than about a ½ inch of movement if you tug on the child seat forcefully. Again, the relative size of the Jetta is important to keep in mind when it comes to the 3 across child seat test, because I really wasn't able to fit these 3 Graco Classic Ride 50 child seats right here in the back properly. This side door won't close. And that's really because the center seat is not truly in the center of the rear bench. That means that if you do need to put 3 child seats in the back of your Jetta, I suggest you buy narrower child seats. The Graco Classic Ride 50 seat is a very average seat in terms of dimensions. Therefore, you can find narrower and smaller child seats on the market, and that's what you'd need in order to fit 3 of them in the back of this vehicle. When it comes to cargo capacity, the Jetta surprises with a trunk that's very accommodating and very large. What I mean by accommodating is the general shape of this cargo area. Very much like the Nissan Sentra, in this vehicle you can actually put a 24-inch roller bag in this fashion and just barely close the trunk lid. It's not something you can do in any of the other compact vehicles out there. That really makes it an awful lot more practical when it comes to cargo hauling, because if I have this bag in this position right here, I can actually put a 26-inch roller bag right there in the trunk behind it. That makes it an awful lot more practical than some of those other compacts out there. Now, if I take these bags out of the trunk and I lift the cargo load floor, you'll also notice that we have a spare tire in this vehicle, so you don't just get a can of Fix-A-Flat, and there's also enough room down there to put a full-size spare tire if you so desire. Now logically, with this large trunk opening, it's very easy to fit these child seats right there in sideways. A lot of small vehicles, you do have to tilt the child seat in and insert them in this fashion. It makes it a lot less practical. Once they're in, they can also sit in that sideways position. Now it is important to keep in mind that these hinges are not hidden hinges, so they will hit your cargo if you do put cargo right there on the side like that. So you have to keep your cargo a little bit away from the trunk hinges. With those 3 child seats in there, being mindful of these trunk hinges and the impact on their cargo, it is easy to close the trunk lid, as you can see right there. I also have a great deal of additional space, so I should have no problem fitting this 26-inch roller bag right here into the cargo area, pushing that right back there. And then, of course, this 24-inch roller bag right up front, as I said earlier. Squeeze that right in there like that. Then, as long as I'm not binding up on the child seats, which probably can happen here, if you do need more cargo room in the Jetta, keep in mind that those rear seat backs do fold in a 60/40 folding fashion. Thanks for taking the time to check out this video. Again, I'm Alex Dykes, and this has been the 2015 Volkswagen Jetta. If you want to know more about the Jetta TDI, then go ahead and click that banner at the bottom of your screen, and you'll be taken on over to the subscribe section of my channel, where you can find the full review of the 2015 Jetta TDI. You can also find me over at alexandautos.com. You can email your questions to alex@alexandautos.com, over at Facebook as Alex and Autos, and over at Twitter as Alex and Autos as well. I'll see you next week.